Hi everyone, so this is lesson 5, solving by factoring. If you've not already, make sure you have this piece of paper that you picked up from the front out and ready to go so we can take our notes. So all week we have been factoring, and we keep adding little by little to our steps of factoring, all for today's lesson, because today we are solving quadratic functions by factoring. Okay, so first let's look at this graph I have here. And we want to look at what the solutions are, okay? So solutions, remember, are when this quadratic function crosses the x-axis, which is right here. And so this will cross the x-axis at this point and this point, okay? So our solutions here are the coordinates -2, 0, and 4, 0. Remember, your coordinates are always x, then y. Now it's asking us for the zeros. Well, remember that solutions and zeros are the same thing. So again, we're going to write -2, 0, and 4, 0, those coordinates. And lastly, we have our x-intercepts. So x-intercepts, same thing as your solutions, same thing as your zeros. The x-intercepts are -2, 0, and 4, 0. So when you are asked to solve a quadratic function, you are looking at these 2 points. Those x values are the solutions. Okay, so let's review factoring. We have x squared minus 2x minus 8. So when we factor, the first thing you always look for is if there is a GCF. So notice that we have a 1, a -2, and a -8. If you were to put that in Desmos to find your GCF, it would tell you that your GCF is 1. So remember, when it's just a 1, we don't factor it out, we just move on to the next step. Our next step is going to be to look at our a value and the c value, and we're going to multiply them together. So the a value here is 1. Your c value is -8. So we are going to multiply these two numbers together. 1 times -8 is -8. And now we want to look for factors of -8 that are going to give us, when we add them together, our b value. So remember, the b value is right here in the middle, -2. So we have a, b, and c. So factors of -8 would be 1 and -8, 2 and -4. So if we add these together, 1 plus -8 is -7, so it's not going to be these factors. And 2 plus -4, that gives me -2. So these are our factors we want to use because they add up to the b value. So we're looking at these. So now that we found these two factors, we're going to use that to split the middle term into 2 different terms. So I'm going to rewrite 1x squared, and then I'm going to split this -2x into 2 separate terms. We're going to have a plus 2x, because that's the first factor we're using, and then a minus 4x, because that's the second factor we're using. And then we just rewrite the -8. Okay? So now we went from 3 terms to 4 terms, and we can factor by grouping. I'm going to group the first 2 terms together, 1x squared plus 2x. And then I'll group the second 2 terms together, -4x and -8. So the GCF, or the greatest common factor of the first 2 terms, 1x squared and 2x, will be 1x. Because they both have an x in it, we can take an x out. So we're going to take out 1x. And then when we divide out 1x, remember it does not disappear. You have to bring it down with parentheses. And so inside the parentheses, let's divide 1x squared divided by 1x is going to give me 1x. 2x divided by 1x. Well, 2 divided by 1 is just 2. And those x's will cancel out. Now let's look at the next group. We have negative 4x minus 8. So we can take a 4 out of both of these terms. And since the first one is negative, we're going to take out a negative 4. So always be careful that you're looking at the sign of the first term in each group. So I'm going to bring this negative 4 down with parentheses. Negative 4x divided by negative 4 is going to be positive 1x. And negative 8 divided by negative 4 is positive 2. So notice we have the same thing in our parentheses, and that's what we call the twins, 1x plus 2. So to write out our answer, we're going to factor out the twins. So we have 1x plus 2. So we'll cross those off because we just used them. And what's left is 1x and negative 4. So we glue those together and put them in parentheses. And that is the factored form of x squared minus 2x minus 8. Okay, so that's all review. That's what we've done all week long. But now we want to actually find the solutions to this equation. Okay, so what we're going to do is after you factor everything out, we're going to look at our factors. So our factors in this one are everything that's in the parentheses. So 1x plus 2 and 1x minus 4. Both of those are what we multiply together to get back to the original equation, so that's why we call them factors. And so we're going to take both of these factors and make them equal to 0. So 1x plus 2 equals 0. And 1x minus 4 equals 0. When we solve for x here, we're going to get our actual solution. So to solve for x, we get x by itself by subtracting 2 on both sides. And you end up with 1x is equal to negative 2. Okay, so that's our solution. And notice that this equation is actually the exact equation for the graph on the left here. And negative 2 was one of our solutions, so we can just write it as negative 2 comma 0. All right, so let's look at the next one. 1x minus 4 equals 0. To get x by itself, we want to do the opposite of subtraction. We're going to add. So we will add 4 to both sides. And we get 1x is equal to positive 4. And notice that's also one of the solutions or zeros or x-intercepts that we found on the graph. So we can write it as a coordinate 4, 0, because our solutions are always x-intercepts, and that's how we write the coordinate for an x-intercept. All right, so now we're going to move on to some examples below. And the examples below are already the factored form of equations. Okay, so we're going to look at some equations that have already been factored and just practice solving them, finding the solutions and those x-intercepts. All right, so we're going to look at this first one at the top left. I'm going to zoom in on it. So we have 5 times x minus 10 times x plus 3. So we're trying to solve for x in each of these. So we want to look at the factors that have an x. So that means we're looking at x minus 10 and x plus 3. Okay, so let's take x minus 10 and we're going to make it equal 0. So to solve for x, we just do the opposite of subtraction. We add 10 to both sides, and we get that x is equal to 10. So the x-intercept, or the solution on a graph, would be 10, 0. All right, let's look at the next factor. We have x plus 3. So x plus 3 is equal to 0. To get x by itself, we're going to subtract 3 on both sides, and we get x is equal to -3. We can also write this as a solution, or as an x-intercept, -3, 0. If you were to type this whole equation into Desmos, and then look at the x-intercepts on Desmos, you would see these two coordinates for your x-intercepts. All right, let's go to the one on the right here. We have -3 times 4x plus 44 times 2x minus 8. So again, our factors are what are in parentheses with the x's, and those are the ones we want to look at to solve for x. So if we take our first one, 4x plus 44 equals 0. To get x by itself, first we have to subtract 44 from both sides, and we get 4x equals -44. And then we have a second step here. Because we have a coefficient of x other than 1, we're going to divide it by 4 to get x by itself. So x is equal to -11. So the x-intercept here would be -11, 0. All right, let's look at our next factor. We have 2x minus 8 equals 0. To get x by itself, we're going to add 8 to both sides, and we have 2x equals 8, because those 8's on the left cancel out. And then again, to get x by itself, we do the opposite of multiplying 2 times x, and we're going to divide by 2 on both sides. So we have x is equal to 8 divided by 2, which is 4. So the solution here would be 4, 0. All right, let's look at our third problem. 11 times 3x plus 9 times 6x minus 6. So we'll take the first factor with the x, and we are going to make it equal to 0. So 3x plus 9 equals 0. We subtract 9 on both sides, and we get 3x, those cancel out, is equal to -9. And then we need to divide by 3 on both sides. Now we have x is equal to -3. So the solution, or the x-intercept you would see on the graph, is -3, 0. All right, our next factor we're looking at is 6x minus 6. So we take 6x minus 6 and we make it equal to 0. So to get x by itself, we're going to add 6 to both sides, and we'll have 6x is equal to 6. Then we're going to divide by 6 on both sides, and we have x is equal to 1. So the x-intercept here is 1, 0. All right, this is our last one. All right, we have negative 2 times x minus 3 times 3x minus 1. So our first factor is x minus 3. And we want to make it equal to 0. So to get x equal to 0, or x by itself, we're going to add 3 to both sides. And we have x is equal to positive 3. This time we don't have to divide because the coefficient of x is just 1. So the solution, or the x-intercept, would be 3, 0. And then this is our last factor to find. We have 3x minus 1. And we're going to make it equal to 0 as well. So we add 1 to both sides. And we get 3x is equal to 1. And then we need to divide by 3 on both sides. And we're going to get that x is equal to 1/3. Or if you put that in Desmos, that's 0.3 repeating. So the solution is 1/3, 0, or 0.3 repeating, 0. So this is our notes for today. There is an assignment you picked up, and you're going to be working on that. The assignment is going to have you do the same thing where you're going to take your factors, make them equal to 0, and then solve them to find what your x-intercepts would be. And then there's also a couple on that assignment where you have to factor it first, and then you solve, making each factor equal to 0 to find those x-intercepts. All right, so good luck, and I will see you on Monday.